Hey everyone, Brian here from Native Instruments. I'm here at Guitar Center today to talk to you about stems. What we've essentially created is a tool that allows DJs to mix how they've been trying to mix for many years. Now when I'm blending between two tracks, when I'm going from deck A to deck B, I'm using the EQs to balance out certain frequencies so that I'm trying to create a new remix. I'm trying to take the bass line and drums from one track, and I'm trying to use the melody and the vocals from another track and put them together to form a remix. Now, using the EQs, that only does so much. I'm still able to hear some of the drum pattern as well as the bass line. Now, with stems, I have control over 4 elements within each track. So for example, I can manipulate the drums, the bass, the melodies, and vocals, and be able to add and subtract those particular elements within that record. Stems, you're able to purchase them on sites such as Beatport or Juno, but you're also able to create your own stems using the Stem Creator. To do this demonstration and kind of walk you through what stems can do, I'm going to be explaining this on the Traktor Kontrol S8. Now I also have with me the Traktor Kontrol S5, which we just released on October 2nd, and we also have the Traktor Kontrol D2 and the F1. So let's dive into it. So a stem file consists of 4 audio files. I have the 4 stems, which again can be broken up into various sections depending on how the artist created the stem track. So for example, on the song I have on deck A, I have it broken up into drums, bass, melodic, and vocal. Whereas the song on deck B, it's broken up into drums, bass, various 1, and various 2. On the controller, I have 4 volume faders which allow me to lower or raise the volume for that particular stem. Soloing out each individual part, I have the drums. I have my bass line. Then I have my melodic element and some vocals. So even just by using the volume faders on one stem track, I'm able to create my own arrangement. Now, when I'm transitioning from one track to the next using stems, I'm able to gradually transition each element, creating a very smooth, clean mix. So I have these 2 tracks here, and I'm just going to be swapping the drums, and I'll also be swapping the bass lines, and you'll be able to hear how clean these transitions are. So here I can swap the drum patterns. Now if I want, I can swap the bass lines. And then the drums again. A couple other tools that I have at my disposal to manipulate the stems are filters. In addition to having the independent volume faders on each stem, I have independent filter control for each stem. So the way that this works is I have 4 on buttons and 4 knobs which allow me to control the filter. Most importantly, I have to make sure that my display reads filter, and I can get to that by using the arrows on the left or the right of the display. So once I'm on my filter page, the on buttons turn on and off the filter, and then the knob here controls a high pass or a low pass filter. So if I turn it to the right, it's a high pass. To the left, the low pass. What's unique with this is I'm able to apply 2 different filters on the stems. One stem on the drums could be a low pass filter, while on the vocals I have a high pass filter applied to it. The next tool that I can use to manipulate the stems is the ability to add an effect per stem. The way that I would apply an effect to a stem track is pretty much the same way that I would apply it to a track deck, but with one extra step. So I'm going to add the gator effect to the third stem that I have here, my melodic element. So what I'll do is I'm going to turn on the gator effect. I am going to turn on the first effect unit on deck A, which is what I'm currently working with. Now the last step is my effect send page here, which I can access by using the arrows to the left and to the right of the display. So once I'm on my effect send page, the on buttons here dictate which stem gets the gator effect applied to it. So in this case, I want to have the gator effect be applied to the third stem here. So I hit the on button on my third channel. Now, what I also have control over is an effect send level here. Now, what this does is it controls how much of the effect gets applied to the original sample. So if I have this at 100%, we're hearing 100% of the effect be applied to the sample. As I start lowering the percentage, we start to hear more of the original sample coming through. So those are the main tools that allow me to manipulate stems on the S8. Now, I also have the D2 with me, and the way that I manipulate stems on this controller, it's the exact same way as the S8. The D2 is just the side piece of the S8, so I still have independent volume control. I also have independent filter adjustment, as well as effect send. Now, our newest controller that we just released is the Traktor Kontrol S5, and this controller is also stems ready. I'm still able to control my volume, my filter, and turn on effects on my stems, but the way that I control them is just a little bit different. When I have a stem loaded into one of the decks here and I hit the remix deck button, now my pads are going to allow me to manipulate my stems. So the top row of pads here, these are mute and unmute for each individual stem. When I'm using the volume faders on the S8, all I'm really doing is just quickly bringing out and bringing in the volume of the track. And honestly, just hitting the mute and unmute on the stem, it's a lot easier. It's very quick to turn on and off the stem just by pushing the pad. Now, in addition to muting and unmuting the stems, I can also control volume and filter another way. My bottom row of pads here, these are my stem selectors. When I click on the first and the third pad here, you can see that they start to blink. This lets me know that I currently have these two stems selected. So now if I turn my browse knob, it's controlling the volume for those two stems that I have selected, and I can push in the browse knob and it resets it back to 100%. And then my loop knob controls the filter for these two selected stems. So if I push in the loop knob, it turns on the filter, and then if I turn it to the left, it's the low pass, and I turn it to the right, it's a high pass. Now, I can also reset the filter just by holding Shift and pushing in the loop knob. So if I want to filter the whole entire track, I would just make sure that all four stems are selected, and then when I use my loop or my browse knob, all of them are going to be affected at once. So I'm also able to choose which stem gets the effect applied to it. I don't have control over the effect send like I did on the S8, but I can still choose which stem gets the effect. By holding Shift, the orange row of pads here dictates which stem gets the effect. So if I have just the first one illuminated here, if I apply the beat masher to this, it's only adding that effect just to the drum stem that I had selected. The F1, originally designed to control the remix decks, has been retrofitted to be able to control stems now. I'm not able to see the waveforms like I would on the S8, S5, or the D2, but we have something kind of unique using the pads and the lights to represent the stems. I have 4 independent volume faders for each individual stem, and I also have independent filters for the stems as well. Now the lights on the pads represent the stems that are currently playing. So when I lower one of the volume faders, the lights for that particular stem dim down. Now, just like the S5, I can also mute and unmute the stems just by pushing the stop buttons at the bottom here. And also by holding Shift, I'm able to turn on and off the effects per stem. All of these controllers are stems ready. Now, trying to figure out which one you want to use for a setup can be a little bit more challenging. The Traktor Kontrol S8, that's our flagship controller. It has all of the bells and whistles that you would need to be able to perform. One of the key elements with this is that it's also a standalone mixer. I'm still able to hook up normal vinyl or CDs into this mixer and use it as a regular DJ mixer. But once I power it into Traktor, I have the ability to perform remix decks as well as stems. Now, the D2, for example, this is a little bit more portable. Let's say you have a favorite DJ mixer that you always perform with. With the D2, you're able to add one or two of these to the side of the mixer and be able to fully control your stems. You could also add this to your current setup, which might consist of two X1 controllers, and then you have a D2 dedicated just for stems. Now the S5, it's the same size as the S4, so in terms of portability, it's a lot easier to carry around with me. I still have full control over my stems as well as a 4-channel mixer. And then the F1, it's also been updated to control stems. So a lot of people have the F1 controller already. It's easy to add this into your setup. If you're an S4 user, it's a very small portable controller that you can add to your setup to easily perform stems. And also a very cool setup to have is a Z1, an X1, and an F1. It's a very portable and compact setup, and if you put it on a machine stand, it's a nice little command center for you to perform your mixes. The great thing about all of the Native Instruments products here is that they're all modular. I can connect all of them together. I could even have an S8 and two D2s on the side to have control over all 4 decks simultaneously. To check out these controllers or to learn more about stems, go to your local Guitar Center or go to guitarcenter.com.